Thank you for your introduction. I'm very excited to be the moderator of this section, talk about a very serious and unfortunately, it is also about the fashion. You know, on the fashion show, it should be exciting. And I mean, it is a mixed feeling. On one hand, we have to appreciate the fashion, the arts. On the other hand, we talk about a rather heavy topic about ESG or the green finance. So that with this mixed feeling, and we have a good mix of panelists from Hong Kong and also Sweden. Hugo, hello Hugo. Yeah. So without further ado, I would like to share a little bit about the background, okay, of our. Let me go back. Of the introduction from the UN about the 17 initiative. Throughout the last few years, we talk about ESG, particularly on my side, it is the finance side. Listed company has to comply with the ESG requirement in order to fulfill their compliance requirements. And on the other hand, on the fashion industry, we have to address for those requirements so that perhaps at least we have to bring down the temperature or maintain the temperature within maybe 1 or 2 degrees. So there are some developments. EBA, the European Banking Association, reported that we have to use ESG data or the ESG factor to include it into the risk management. So that means the credit information has to include the ESG information. And then, as I just mentioned, SFC enhances disclosure requirement for the ESG funds. So Hong Kong is different from the other cities or countries. In the other area, ESG means literally everything. We have to address the human factor, the social factor, or whatsoever. But in Hong Kong, since we are nothing more than a trade port in my eyes, majority of our business are on banking, finance, listed company, so on. So when the requirement of green financing come to us, we believe that it is solely because of lending, credit risk, so on. But on my area, I am a FinTech guy. So when I do FinTech, people ask me, hey, this fashion show, how come you are here? I said, fashion, come on, it's supply chain management. It is risk management, ESG. So that's why I'm here. So I'm here trying to, you know, with the selective of panelists, I would love to share about this ESG or green financing issue across all areas so that you have a clearer picture about, you know, what it is and how can we make the world better for our second or third or subsequent generation to live on. So these are the figures that you can see. Sustainable fund increased substantially over the past few years. And then one research team, they find that there are many principles being introduced by the industries. And for us, as a trade port, Hong Kong was famous solely because we have a port at the beginning. For the past 200 years, we did that job very nicely so that we become one of the best trading hub in Hong Kong or financial hub in Hong Kong. In order to sustain or maintain Hong Kong's position, there are many this kind of consortium being set worldwide to make the trade financing embracing technologies. Among the 5, you might not aware that 2 of them were initiated from Hong Kong. And one of those is initiated by HKMA, and the other one, with the help of HSBC, Paul's company, and a startup from Science Park. And we are proud to have this early adoption. And I would love to address that there are more banks, like Standard Chartered Bank, like BOC, like CCB, and Ping An One Connect. They are also trying to do the same to make good use of technology to maintain this sustainability. Unfortunately, you might not aware that Standard Chartered Bank target this Shenzhen company to do trade finance in Southeast Asia. They are not picking Hong Kong as the head office, but Singapore. So without further ado, I would like to pass the stage to my friend, Peter. Okay. So that Peter can illustrate what the work, how the climate currently are changing our day-to-day or our future. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. From a little background, I think, how to put that?
Just
push that. Okay. So I'm actually a scholar. I learned all about DLT, distribution ledger, or maybe some people talk about blockchain, is from this white paper, the Hong Kong MA white paper. It attracted my attention because it's really the structure which, when I do my garment apparel trade, I discovered this is a very useful idea to make our supply chain risk management in place, to build trust and also transparency. So this is, and then what next? From that, this is the DLT network. And when I walk through my company structure, is exactly perfect for us because we have our ERP system. In the old days, we call ourselves ERP, but right now we changed the word because it's not that simple. It's a data management system. Actually, we put most of the transaction data with our system already. And we are a little bit different because we wanted to be transparent, and as we are supply chain risk manager, we don't add or reduce anything. So is the total idea. So what's next is from the research with my colleagues, we propose a proof of concept or proof of work in which we try to see whether we can go further. This is my little proposal about sustainable finance model, which is a very simple one. But when Hong Kong, we talk about ESG report, sustainable report, because I'm also an listed company chairman, so this is also my obligation to share the data with the stakeholders. So I start to look into what is ESG report requirement. And then I discover there's not that much standard about what to be shown. And people talk about sustainable finance and green financing, and my attention not only to the big guy, to the manufacturer, they have sustainable loan, they have a lot of different projects they can engage. Then what about SME? And recently, for the past 5 or 10 years, we find that financing, because we don't have LC, letter of credit, it seems like this is abandoned. You know, we give credit to our buyer, but there's bad case. There's so many bankruptcy, and it really affects our supply chain. So this is where we are come up, and I have a proposal to do a sustainable finance model.
All right.
What I'm proposing.
I think that slide talk about transparency. I think it's matched very well with Dr. Cheng and Dr. Huang's research and paper, right? So let me introduce Dr. Huang, that Peter and myself and Dr. Huang is currently trying to conduct a research that we believe that we can improve the transparency and the efficiency about this supply chain management. So please, Dr. Huang.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Hello, everyone. I'm George Huang from University of Hong Kong. We are conducting a research project. The aim is to develop blockchain services to support this company to do ESG disclosures. Okay, so the project is sponsored by the Hong Kong Government Innovation and Technology Fund. Also, we received strong industrial sponsorships from companies, and Peter's company is one of our sponsors. Okay, so we hope we can add technological solutions to the ESG ecosystem in Hong Kong and in Greater Bay Area as well. Okay. So in the ecosystem, we consider basically 4 groups of stakeholders. So at the top of the slide are listed companies, and at the bottom are Hong Kong Stock Exchange and regulators and rating agencies. Okay. And on the left-hand side are ESG consultants, and the right-hand side is a group of investors, other stakeholders like NGO. Okay, so for the listed companies, the project basically proposed to apply IoT technologies to collect data from the right beginning, and or extract data from ERP systems. Okay, and then we pass the data to consultants. Consultants help the company to aggregate the data and compare the documents. Okay, now at the center of this slide is the blockchain. And first of all, it is a platform for sharing information and communicating between different stakeholders. But one of the highlights of this project is to develop authenticity credits for the data you disclosure. Okay, authenticity credits, because the data they announce may not be true. Okay, so we needed to put stamps on anything you disclose. So we use where you get it, when you get it, how you get the data, and also who collects data. By IoT devices, basically you get all these stamps, okay, including signal strength as the how. Then we use these to build up the credits. Credits basically are very similar to university credits. Like Hong Kong U, you have to get 240 credits to graduates. Okay, so here you have to get some credits in order to qualify the disclosure. Okay, and also the second point is the ESG index, which is commonly used by the industry for the moment. So university, we have a first class honor, second class upper, lower division. So this is the measure to disclose, to assess how good you are. Okay, so we have 2 indexes to do this. This is probably the key point of our project. Okay, and we will implement all the solutions, use smart contracts around the blockchain. Okay, and also for the second ESG performance index, we basically adopt kind of university ranking methodology. You know, that one, some subjective measures, some mostly objective measures. Okay, so we are investigating that model as well. Now, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we cannot actually go to Cambodia to install our IoT solutions at the company. So we did a desktop demonstration. So you can see we deployed 3 types of device. One is to measure the solid resource, input, output. Other one is liquid, the fish tank, like a wastewater, okay, or the fresh water you consume in textile industry. And right-hand side is the carbon emission, CO2. So we use 2 cans of Coke. when you open the Coke, you get the CO2. So we use the sensor to measure, collect this data. But the working principle is pretty good. So then we connect this to blockchain, and then consultants can aggregate process data to compare the ESG report eventually. Okay, so this is, we are in the middle of the project. Hopefully we can go to the company to do the pilot study. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Huang. So you said it's somewhat like the university credits. So if you get enough credit, you got to pass. Okay, you can graduate from the university. It's somewhat like, if we apply the same methodology back to school, so I think we can install a lot of CCTV or whatever wearable devices, and we might, at the end, do not have to sit into the examination. And as long as there are robots surrounding us, we can use this alternate data to earn the credits. Well, I'm just kidding, but, for the normal school, okay, it is quite difficult. But in my mind, if it is the school to train athletics, okay, then it would make good sense to us. Because as long as we measure, how fast they are running, how the heights they can jump, that makes good sense. So I think for the floor or the audience behind, I think Dr. Wang's research is all about transforming the way how we do the readings. As long as the readings can be captured by the robots, and the robot can write those information onto the trusted database, then we can always use a good algorithm to judge whether it is valid or not, right? Jenny, do you agree on this methodology or whatever? Yeah, that makes good sense, right?
Yes, thank you.
So I think our next generation or the next generation may be benefit from the same research by skipping the examination, okay? So with the same approach.
No exam, that's good.
All right, so now, Hugo, may I have your sharing? You are in Sweden, right?
Yes, I'm in Stockholm at the moment.
Yeah,
so,
stuck there, yeah, okay. So while you are stuck in there, like those appliances in Hong Kong University, I'm expecting you can speak to us more openly. Yeah.
I can.
Thank you.
Okay, I can just briefly introduce myself. I'm Hugo Petit, the CFO of Renewcell. As you know, the fashion industry has huge sustainability issues. I think the fashion industry is one of the bigger polluters in the world. To give you some examples, I'm not sure if you're familiar with a lake, or it was a lake previously, the Aral Lake, that is situated in close to Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. It was a huge lake that actually has disappeared because water from the lake was redirected in order to support the production of cotton. And just to give you an example, a pair of jeans needs around 10,000 liters of water. Also, if you look at polyester clothing, they contribute with around 35% of the ocean's microplastics. And also, millions and millions of trees are cut down every year in order to produce viscose clothing. So currently, the fashion industry is what we call linear, meaning that virgin material continuously is used in order to produce textiles. And unfortunately, only less than 1% of the clothes is recycled into new textiles. So Renewcell is a company that was founded by a couple of inventors that are connected to the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, and they have actually invented a technology, a patented, unique technology that makes it possible to recycle cellulosic textiles, such as cotton, for example. And we're able to reuse that and produce a new material that we call circulose. We currently have a small production line that we have used to prove our concept, prove our product. But we're currently building a huge commercial large-scale plant in the middle of Sweden, Sundsvall, and aim to actually start our commercial production the second half of 2022. So we actually are one of the very few solutions that makes it possible to actually make the fashion industry circular.
Mm-hmm. Good. So I'm glad to have Hugo here because I personally, frankly speaking, I'm from the FinTech field. I'm not very familiar with this recycling. Well, I do understand, the recycling of bottle. I do understand the recycling, of other materials in Hong Kong. But for fashion and this clothing industry, I can only find a few in Hong Kong. So thanks for your sharing. And I'm glad to know that far away from Hong Kong, there are other startups or companies who are addressing this problem by promoting recycling. So I have a lot of questions to ask you later on, so stay tuned. So now, Paul, back to the World Bank, okay, locally in Hong Kong. So may I have your sharing about your views about green financing?
Yeah, sure. First of all, good afternoon, people in the venue, people in the Asia zone for the Zoom, and also Hugo and other audience in European zone. It's early morning, right? 9 o'clock, around that. And also,
yes,
if someone happens to be in American time zone, they'll be now very early, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So good morning. I'm Paul. A bit of introduction of myself and why I'm so passionate about this topic. I joined the bank in 1992, so you can guess my age. So in my whole life, I'm doing banking. I deal with startup, SME, MME, large corp, multinational company in different industries. But the industry that I'm most passionate about is always textile and garment, for a simple reason, because my parents also work in that sector. And my first job in the bank, I worked in Kwun Tong. In the old days, Kwun Tong, we still have factory. Can't imagine, right? Factory in Kwun Tong. We went there, the dyeing factory still eject the green water on the floor, red gas out from the building. Those were the old days. So I've seen the changes of these sectors, and I work closely with not only the manufacturer, but also traders and retailers. I still remember, if you date back to early 90s, talk about green, they love it, but only the green notes. I mean the US dollar bank note. That's it. Right. Everyone love it. The things start to change. I still remember when I first talked about green finance, it happened in the bank, I think it's in 2004 or 5, around that time. The bank worked with Hong Kong Political Council, worked with the business environmental councils to promote green equipment finance. Because at that time, China was facing a big problem about pollution. So the China governments in a lot of big cities are pushing all the factories to reduce the pollution, make it more environmental friendly. That's why the bank helping those SME or MME to upgrade their facility. We talk about green finance. But however, I still remember at those old days, we talk about green finance, we won't have this kind of big and grand venue. We better pick a very small room, 20-odd chairs max, because otherwise the speaker, which is me, will be extremely embarrassing because no one will listen to you. But now I think it changed entirely. Just look at, we keep tracking the market. We did a survey last year, our regular Navigator report. The world has changed so much that now 86%, which is most of the companies, believe that their sales will grow if they adopt more sustainable practice in the model. They not only look at themselves, they even look beyond themselves and look at the supply chain, because a lot of surveys tell you that no matter how big you are, you can only control around 20 to 25% of the carbon emission of your company. What happens more is on the supply chain. So actually now, out of the survey we have done with 10,000 companies, 24% of them saying that they will pick supply chain partners with strong sustainability ability. So 45% saying that sustainability is a long-term investment, 75% saying that they will invest and set target for themselves. So obviously the world has changed from what I first joined the bank. So I think, so HSBC on that note, we're extreme, sorry, give me a few minutes of advertising window. HSBC is all about extremely supportive to sustainability. The net zero, we really want to be part of it. 3 things we're doing. Internally, we want to be a net zero bank on 2 fronts. One is that everyone will know that 2050, we want to be net zero on the financed emission, because we're a bank, we finance a lot of projects. We want the bank as a whole, not only the bank, but what we finance is also net zero by 2050. This is quite far away from now, right? We're now in 2021, still 9 years to go. We also set ourselves a shorter goal, 2030, which is 9 years from now. We want to make sure that our own operation is net zero. So we mean it not only for ourselves internally, also for the business, the project that we finance. Another part is that we do put resources to support our customer. A few things we're doing, particularly for the SME or MME segment, a lot of the companies do not know how to go to that path. And to be honest, as a traditional banker, you can imagine that I'm not an expert in this area. That's why we do set up a dedicated team in every country, including Hong Kong. It's a dedicated team, the ESG team that talk to customer, give them advice, tell them in your sector, your size, the journey of your company, what can you do to go for that net zero journey. We make a plan that $1 trillion US dollar to be lend and invest in sustainability project, which is a big lot of money. Because in Chinese, we're talking about 1萬億美金. It's a lot of money. We also provide transition finance solutions because, I mean, when we talk about green, something very fancy, but unfortunately, some of the sectors, they're still in a very polluted state. They need help to be in a transition, how to help them out from very polluted to be less polluted. That transition finance we're providing. We also, the third pillar is that we also continue to think about different kind of climate solutions that we can help the different sectors of the world. Dr. Cheng talked a lot about finance, so let me talk about green finance. It's a few things that is working now in the bank. Not only HSBC, I realize a lot of big banks in the world also adapt similar model, but of course, HSBC is extremely committed to that. A few things. First of all, we are extremely active in the promotions of sustainability KPI-linked facility. What does that mean? It means that we grant you some facility. Before the facility is granted, we talk to you, we sit together, talk about some ESG matrix, talk about what are we going to achieve. And once that facility is in place, we check the performance. So I think that in the future, the blockchain technology will be extremely useful because in the process we are learning, in the process we realize that collections of data is extremely painful, but however, we just go for it. And the beauty of this is that if the company they do meet the target, they enjoy a lower interest rate. If they don't, they have to pay us a penalty. So by doing this, we really incentivize companies that go for the ESG practice. So this part one is the sustainability link facility. Another two pieces I want to highlight is the green loan, green bond, which is very straightforward. You have a project that is green related. For example, you upgrade your production facility to reduce pollutions, to reduce the wastage, or you build a green farm, provide you finance. The whole part of it is a green loan, very straightforward. It's specifically for that project. We've been doing this for a long, long time. And recently, we go beyond that. We think about the supply chain finance, because as I mentioned, as a company, the best you can control about your carbon emission is not more than 25%. The remaining 75% rests with your supply chain. So that's why we offer the supply chain solutions. A good example is a collaboration with Walmart. Walmart, I mean, is quite well known. I think it's the biggest retailers globally. What we have done with Walmart is very simple but meaningful. Is that because Walmart, it has so many suppliers, we agree with Walmart on a matrix of what to be measured, and then we rate its suppliers. So the one which is more sustainable, better in the sustainability practice, better score. Those less fulfilling those criteria, lower score. Those with the better score, we offer them under the Walmart arrangement with, once again, with a lower interest rate. The highest, the one with lower score, more expensive. But okay, well, reasonable, because then we talk about fair to customers. Still reasonable, but slightly more expensive interest rate. So that we work with Walmart, a very powerful retailers, that we make sure that more and more suppliers globally would like to go for that route and really adopt the best practice. So I think it's something new. We have done that with Walmart, which is quite a good model. We would like to replicate the same model to more suppliers and retailers globally. The fourth piece I want to talk about before I hand it over back to Professor is advisory. We have done, as I mentioned, because for the journey, actually, there's a lot of things we can do. So, and also a lot of opportunities, not only on your organic growth, but also on your M&A, and also in your joint venture, and also put together new investors if you want to go for that sustainable practice. Because in the globally, we have seen that a lot of investment funds, they do set aside a specific percentage of money to put on green company in green project. So we provide that kind of corporate advisory to those small startup or medium-sized company so that they can get connected with those big guys, global folks, so that they can be more flexible in the way they manage the finance and equity. So I stop here first because actually I have the deck, it carries almost like 100 pages. I stop here first.
Okay, we can stay till tomorrow, because you are doing advisory. You realize that in the past, what's banking? Banking is the place you can borrow money from them. And now a bank do advisory services. So that means it's a crossover. So this is the trend. That we do new business these days. So I would like to ask the first question. Before I ask the first question, there's a QR code that you can scan and post your questions so that it will be displayed on my iPad so that I can select the most interesting one and to be shared with the panelists. For those who are online, I think the QR code can also be scanned and you can just type over. Before I ask, I have to let you know, I seldom wear suits, but this is, I selectively pull it out from my wardrobe. It was bought 10 years ago from Marks & Spencer, that those good old days I fly frequently. I selectively bought this, the material because it's machine washable. So that means it's environmental friendly. Since the first time I purchased this material, then I always buy the same, despite the fact that it is not that fashionable, but it really long-lasting. Okay, so I deliberately make this one for today on stage, but to be fashionable. It is, I pick one of the bow tie that I seldom wear, but particularly, am I fashionable? Yes, thank you. So that means, I want to showcase that to be fashionable, to be environmental friendly, has to be do more than just talk. But before we do something, we have to let the expert to give us as advice, to talk about how we can take part, to these sustainability businesses. So the first one is the first question. I think Peter or Hugo may be the two who can answer. There's a saying, sustainability in fashion industry is the new fast fashion formula. So without sustainability, I don't think you can win a new deal, as Paul just said. So how can it affect the new formula in terms of material source and supply chain and fashion design, as well as retailer and e-commerce? On this area, for this new requirement, what's your opinion, Peter?
Oh, I let Hugo. Hugo,
you are the one. You are really into the business.
Yes.
How can this sustainability as a new marketing campaign or whatsoever? What's your opinion about this?
I think everything points at one direction, and that is that the fashion brands need to change and need to commit. And I think many of the global brands like Hennes & Mauritz and Zara, they have already committed and made significant commitments, for example, to be completely sustainable 2030. And Hennes & Mauritz, for example, has made that commitment. And that, of course, that's where Renewcell comes in, because there is currently no solution for these brands to do so. But again, why is this important? I think, sustainability is, I guess, one of the major or the largest macro trends since the Industrial Revolution, maybe. And what we will see is that people that use or consume fashion, they will become more aware of sustainability issues and will more and more focus on purchasing sustainable textiles. I think what we already have seen in maybe the airline industry is the travel shame, at least in Europe, that's very common. And I think going forward, we will see something similar within the fashion industry. People will require and will have a pressure on them to wear more sustainable clothing. I also think that people or brands need to continue to be attractive for new talent. And I think also here it will be important that they really have a sustainability profile. And another also very important is, of course, financing. I mean, a lot of financing is directed towards sustainable businesses. And if you're not compliant to sustainable requirements, that will affect you in financing and costs.
Okay, so Peter,
okay.
yeah.
I have my little, comments because for all my background is supply chain management service, and the really bad words I don't like is paper fashion, disposable garment. You can wear it 1 or 2 times. That is maybe like 10 or 12 years ago. When H&M come up, I put the name because I don't do that business. Because I think that they are too cheap. Cheap is that word. We want to create value, for a supply chain manager. So I'm totally not second for sustainable fast fashion. You know, fast, you can be fast, but you just right on time, you know. And also you don't need to produce that much, okay? On my side, there are some customer, I don't put the name, but they are running, because they're a listed company, you know, and we are financial people too. When I look into their book, the performance is really bad. You know, you don't look at to your performance, because recently in our industry, there's so many bankruptcy cases. And it hurt the whole supply chain, not about the pandemic. The pandemic hit recently. But before the pandemic, we got one bad damage about a lot of retailers in the United States or even Europe, they go for bankruptcy. So as Paul, you are bankers, you know how bad it will influence the whole, you know, turn bad. So I think what I'm always pushing is don't just talk. You have to act. Act is, you know, I think H&M, a lot of garment manufacturers, I see a lot of articles say that, you know, overproduction. And also your business model, promote cheap products. Why you have to sell cheap? For me, I rather to have created value. So this is what I think the consumer behavior should change. And we are also the consumer. You know, we don't need that much clothes, right? But I'm willing to pay a better, like what Emil said, Professor said, I'd rather to pay a little bit more to get a better product and change our fast fashion behavior. Yes, that's
Good.
my point of view.
Yeah, so that means, so this sustainability requirement will eventually change our behavior.
Oh,
okay.
I also have some, you know, I also put the name, I don't mind, okay? Like Everlane, they talk about price transparency. When I first see their website, I feel shocked because they only post a few factories, less than 10. You know, that's why I come up for, actually, if you want to put the data, you can have the traceability because from the payment, you know who you are going to pay. From the payment, you can put some restriction. But not only about the quality, you send people to audit the factory for the wages, that's not enough. We can do much more better than that. It's just like Professor Huang said, we will put some IoT gadget, you know, they can measure. I remember I got inspected by US Custom when we talk about country of origin. The auditor is so clever, you know, because we declare we make so much clothing, you know. They come and will ask for the electricity bill. Actually, they compare, they know what activity you have done. So the ESG reporting, I think we should go for the very, very, you know, basic data, and you cannot escape from a lot of questions. That's my point of view.
Exactly. So for my second question, let's talk about exactly the same point. So through my introduction, I mentioned that in 2020, the European Banking Authority has published new guidelines on loan origination and monitoring and addressing shortcomings. So that means there are new guidelines that if you grant a loan to the factory or whoever, you have to incorporate ESG matters onto it. Okay, so is there the same guideline in Southeast Asia or Hong Kong? Paul, do you aware of this kind of introduction from the ASEAN countries or from China or from Hong Kong yet?
As first talk about Hong Kong, actually I have a meeting with Hong Kong MA next week, both Monday and Tuesday. Okay, not because of that I speak high on them, but they have issued a draft guidance to all the banks about how to manage the climate-related risk. So it's there. Hong Kong is never lagging behind on that. Hong Kong MA has issued the guideline. I used to work in Singapore, and in ASEAN, actually, similar guidelines have been in place, particularly in Singapore.
In Singapore, okay.
So actually, the whole world is moving in the same direction. Yeah.
The same direction.
Yeah. So it's point one. Point two is that just to give some tips or hints to companies. Basically, let me quote my bank as example. Now, in the proposal write-up, there is a specific section talking about sustainability. The proposal is for us to make analysis on company and adjust the risk. In the past, the risk is normally the buyer risk, supplier risk, financial risk, but now there's a specific section talking about sustainability. So you can imagine how important that topics become in the way that a company want to raise funding. And also, I can also give you some hints is that in the market, as I mentioned, because more and more banks, just like us, want to put $1 trillion to our loan book with green-related theme. So basically, when more and more banks join that, you can imagine that green loans, sustainability loan, you have a good chance to get a better rate than a normal traditional loan.
Beautiful,
yeah.
Beautiful. So may I confirm it with Hugo? So that EBA guideline, what's the situation since 2020? Is it changed a lot, on the way that people granting loan?
Of course. I mean, we have partially a financing facility with the European Investment Bank. And I mean, here, not complying with sustainability regulation in Europe, or even more in general, not being compliant with, let's say, expectations, not regulated stuff, it can have significant implications on our loans. But what we maybe most of all see is that when I meet investors or potential investors, there is a huge focus on ESG topics. I think not being able to adapt to these ESG requirements, I think will be fatal. I think there will be brands that will completely disappear due to the fact that they're not able to adapt.
Good, good. So you confirm that that is the trend. So when it started from Europe, and then, we have to catch up, okay? And we have to catch up fast too. So I received a lot of questions, but before I ask these questions, this is important. I found that HKMA initiated E-Trade Connect project for a couple of years at least. But the adoption is not, that well. I would like to ask Dr. Huang and Paul about, the situation. So first, I ask Professor Huang, is your research, or based on your study, how can the new system, say, with an extension of the blockchain or extension to make good use of IoT to collect the data, will that be a good enhancement to the E-Trade Connect system, or we have to bypass E-Trade Connect and do something else?
Well, first of all, IoT devices, smart devices application, our original purpose was not just to collect ESG data, is to help listed companies to implement Industry 4.0 so that they achieve their operational benefits first. And we found out the data we collected can be easily used for ESG disclosure. So that's why we now moved to this ESG area. So this is very important. It adds a pulling effect. Now we push the company to do ESG. Now if we say IoT can help them to gain efficiency, then you have a pulling effect. This is important. And also, we have been working with logistics companies who are heavily involved in cross-border trade. And again, the data are related to E-Trade Connect. I think my first encounter was DTTN, then the Hong Kong government initiative, probably 15 years ago, Digital Trade and Transportation Network. It's a platform. At that time was centralized, not dispersed blockchain approach. So actually, my research was hooked to that aspect. So I think it's very natural to link the IoT network to the E-Trade Connect.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you are not using one specific device for one single purpose, as long as the device has to be used anyhow, so that the push and pull effect will change the process, and that the data will be collected not only for ESG, but also for as credit data and being used for the financial industry. Paul, do you agree, or do you already, does HSBC already have such a project to consider this kind of data to be included?
Yes, I think it's a long journey. Our bank is only trying to learn from the journey. Last year, I think for the E-Trade Connect, we just mentioned about that. I think we completed first end-to-end. We built the ERP with a customer, with the E-Trade Connect, and then complete a trade transaction. We did it first. And also, even for blockchain, we did it with Contour. They were one of the banks contribute ideas and also complete other transactions. When I talk to Peter, sometimes those success cases look exciting, right? But how to make it scalable is a challenge.
Yes.
I believe that a lot of banks, including HSBC, we are very keen to do that for a few reasons. Because going forward, it is about how to put the global network together digitally. And that part of ecosystem, unlike the old world, should also include the ESG informations, because ESG will be part of requirements in a global trade, like it or not.
Yes.
So how to put all this together, it depends a lot on the digitalizations of different sectors. Because in a global supply chain, we involve factory, traders in different countries, we involve shipping company, train company, we involve companies that issue the certificate, we involve a lot of consultants. So there's so many parts involved, but the stages of digitalization is not the same. How to have a more globally consistent standard in terms of digital format, how to make sure that everyone accelerate and becomes aligned in the standard so that we can put everything on the same ecosystem platform and connect them by digital channel will be a challenge. But I think from a bank perspective, we think it will happen. Not now, hopefully, not far away.
Not far away because of COVID-19. Everything speed up, right? So when we speed up, so back to today's, this is a fashion summit. May I ask Hugo, say, what role can the fashion brands can play to encourage investment and scale up of the innovation and sustainable technologies? So what can we do? So there are different standards, there are a lot of problems, and it's a long journey. But what can we do now?
Well, I think, at least inventing and scaling up is at least in our industry is very very expensive. And given the fact that the brands have committed themselves to become more sustainable, I think there needs to be money on the table. And with money on the table, I mean that we, but also, of course, other companies need strong commitments in terms of offset or offtake agreements, even before a facility is produced. That will give companies as Renewcell the opportunity to go to the banks, go to investors, and give them an opportunity to invest at a lower risk, it will be easier to get financing. There are some interesting examples. If you look at Volkswagen, a German car producer, they committed themselves to buy car batteries from a company called Northvolt that is still building its first plant for a value of 14 billion euros. So I think that is a very important thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, so for financing, I think it's a push-pull effect. The bank will do advising, and they will pull a lot of potential customer in, and then the fashion branding industry, have to design and then be more creative to get the funding more easily. And for us as a consumer, okay, then I just do, by doing that, I pull out my 10-year-old jacket, to demonstrate that it really can do, from the consumer side.
Can I just comment? Can I just comment on that related to the first question? I mean, as a consumer, there are three things, or in general, there are three important things that we need to do. And the first one, that is actually to lower or increase the life cycle of clothes. And with that, I mean to wear our clothes, the clothes we have, more often. On average, clothes are only worn 7 times. So if we could increase that to, let's say, 15 times, it would have an enormous impact.
It's already 100% increase. Yeah.
Yeah. And the second one is to, if you don't want to wear your clothes, to give them to someone else or to sell them to someone else and reuse the clothes in that sense. And then at last, of course, in the end, clothes get disturbed, and then Renewcell comes in, or also other companies, and we're able to recycle the textiles.
Good. I would love to, I just have a dream. So if I wear, every time I wear the same clothes, the data will be locked onto the blockchain. And my employer will pay me extra commission or whatsoever, or the other way around, if I just wear a clothes with not the same second time, my wages will be deducted. Well, it's just a dream. I don't think it is a good dream because it will change the whole, it will scare, the whole world off. But, well, after this round, we basically understand sustainability is the new marketing, we wear different hats. It's a new marketing campaign, or you drive the consumer to select that particular type of products. It's also a key to open the door for the bankers. And then also we have to, on the other hand, to comply to the new requirements. So now, I put the privilege to the floor that you come in person to have the Q&A section, that you have the priority to ask the question to the panelists here in Hong Kong and also in Scandinavia. So may I, anybody have the question? Usually not here in Hong Kong first, because Hong Kong is not very proactive lately. But I hope the situation will change in all aspects. So please get prepared for your question. So I have quite a few here on my iPad. The first one I would like to ask Dr. Petit Cheng. As the pioneer driving carbon reduction in your apparel industry, how would you expect a financial institution to support your green initiative? How?
Right now, I'm working on this with, I'm supporting Professor Huang, on that, and I'm also back up for eTrade Connect and to promote, to first of all, transparent ourselves first. You pull out your data to share with the stakeholders. Because for us, we are, in the old days, we talk about supply chain manager as a middleman. So we are proven, we try hard to prove that we are not a middleman, and we actually create value. So what kind of value we can do? This is actually my study. It's supply chain risk management. If you can Google a little bit, go to Google Scholar, I think this is a recently 12 years or 10 years, a new topic from supply chain management and to add on a risk management. So this is a supply chain management. So my interest about DLT is you can transparent yourself. as a middleman, we need to check, because we are doing service. You know, for our company, Hanbo is transforming from a traditional trading company into a supply chain risk management company. But this is a very new, you know, business model. Some people still not, you know, adopt. And a lot of our clients, you know, when I talk about my service, they actually come to me, hey, Peter, no need. What I want is just a price. I need this price. And that delivery, that's it. But we are pushing hard because I know, you know, I want you to sustain the brand and retailers. So that's why from the past 3 years, you can see a lot of, not small one, even medium and big brand and retailers disappear. So I need to not only work on one side for the brand and retailers. Most of my work, as a supply chain risk management service, we actually serve the supply chain. This is what my client or my, you know, partner, I would say, brand and retailers. Without a resilient supply chain, you know, how you can manage your business well. So this is my role. I hope I can answer that. But for the carbon, you know, to carbon emission is a very new things. Really new. I try to control it. The very basic thing is my wastage. Or sometimes I talk to my client, if you want to order 10,000, 100,000 pieces, you know, can you chop it into free delivery? Because are you sure you need that much?
I see. So it's in line with what Professor Huang said. You are not just use ESG for one purpose.
Yes.
Okay, so as long as you are doing good to your client, you are doing good to your own business.
I have one real case which I always sharing. Let's say, you know, my workers in a factory, when you need to do the salary payment every month or every 2 weeks, you have to pay cash in the old days. So what we are doing in a Cambodia factory, we try to give them an e-wallet because in Cambodia, we have to talk about the digital currency very near future. So this is a good move. So what is the saving? Every year, you know, I need to send compliance team or auditors to see the factory social compliance. So actually, I talked to ILO later. You know, I have a proposal. If you have auto payment methods, and this is transparent, so you save the auditors to come to visit. So it's a saving. And also, if you know about the factory payroll, we pay by cash, you know, you have to go to the bank to collect the cash. And that is very dangerous. So we need to have a military police. Not Hong Kong, it's offshore, okay? And the other thing is the workers don't need a bank. They have the cash, and they spend it. So that's why and the second move is digital currency is really helping, especially the pandemic, we feel that. So for carbon emission, from the production end, is not easy. But from the normal activity, like logistic, packaging, or we can change a little bit of our expectation or habit, we can do a lot of saving, frankly speaking.
Good, good. So in short, to answer how, so if my understanding is right, just make good use of technology.
Yes.
Okay.
And start to know yourself first, because a lot of company, when we come across, hey Peter, I want to join this, but their ERP system, their whole operation is with PDF, is with paperwork. So first step, you have to just Paul mentioned digitalization yourself first, because a lot of project or platform or you cannot engage because you're still using PDF, or your system is not based on a cloud base. A lot of things need to move on.
Yeah, so as long as you gear up yourself, get prepared for this digitalization, then you can easily play that role to change the world to be lower the carbon emission rate.
But the other thing, even my shareholders, my stakeholders, my partner will ask me, is this secure? Where you keep your data? Because a lot of people think that as a business owner, they think that all the data is their secrets. Right?
So you have also changed your culture, your mindset. Otherwise, it's not that easy.
Yes.
So I hope your project will move much faster than we all expected, and then and being a role model to the other factory owners, and so
because
that
I
we
always
can
think
have,
the focus should not only be, because we run the supply chain, logistic, packaging, consumer behavior, a lot of things. The other one is not focusing only on the production base. A little change can change a lot.
Okay, good. So, thank you. I have a very interesting question from online. Sorry, I have to remove my reading glass. So, ESG also covers other dimensions besides environmental, okay?
Yes.
Can the governance and social dimensions be also measured accurately in the fashion and apparel industry, and how? Yeah, so apart from environment, what are the other factors like governance and social dimension can measure? For the last question, okay, we have slightly more than 10 minutes. I would ask a very, that's another good question. They ask, who will play the most important role to get those people move forward to green finance direction? Today's topic is green finance. Who play the most important role? The government, general public, the bank, the researcher, or the policymaker? I ask internal Peter first. Yourself?
No, I think everyone, all the stakeholders have to engage. I think that we have to use the word again, engage. You have to participate, and we try to do more proof of work, proof of concept, right, Professor?
Professor, what do you think? Who played the most important role? Can any just single, say, top down or bottoms up, what's your opinion?
I think as me, you.
Everybody.
I think so. The market. We are, the market.
Yeah.
The whole market.
Okay. The whole market has to play.
As you said, you are wearing 10 years old jacket, so I wear longer. I buy 2 pairs of trousers with 1 jacket. So
Same.
That's
okay.
the life, basically, starts from us.
Yeah.
And
from
that's
ourselves, yeah. But not only for 10 years, I have to keep myself fit too. So I jog. Otherwise, every time you have to buy new trousers. Don't buy 2, just buy 1. Otherwise, it's out of fit. Okay. So good. So it's still, you believe that is
I believe
everybody.
it's everyone. Almost,
Yes.
because the supply chain or the whole thing is everyone.
Yeah. So Dr. Wang said it's everyone. Okay. But it begins from yourself. Okay, so any other opinion? Say, Hugo, you're about to say something.
Yeah, I agree. It's the global awareness, but I think, to be honest, that the United Nations initiative actually has been a real fantastic effort and a prerequisite for making possible what is happening now. And I think it's I guess the biggest project ever, and it's fantastic to see how the overall goals actually, how do you say, in the end up at individuals, companies, making it possible to make this change. So it's everybody, but I think the ignition came when the UN decided on these goals. I think that's fantastic.
So you're at the top as the bank. Green finance, today's topic. So what's your opinion, Paul?
What I see is that actually it seems everyone is now willing to do that. Everyone. Banks, not only HSBC, banks, particularly HSBC, has already set aside a target. It's a target that we have achieved, that we have to invest money in green project. Retailers, the big ones particularly, they're committed to embed that in the supply chain. Even factory traders, everyone is now ready to do that. Even consumer, if you, with this survey, actually majority of consumers saying that if a product, they know that the whole supply chain end-to-end through my hands are more environmental friendly, I want to go for it. So everyone is ready. How I see from that angle, I think the biggest blocker is information cost. I studied economy in university. I learned from Professor No Name that his favorite topic is about information cost and transaction cost.
Yeah.
I think nowadays information cost is kind of the biggest hurdle. As a consumer, you never know whether this one is very friendly.
Yeah.
As a bank, when I have to do sustainable loan, green loan, it's very difficult for me to really measure whether the customer meet the target or not. Even as a factory, Peter has a lot of experience on that. For a factory, am I meeting my KPI on ESG? The data cost is extremely expensive. I think if somewhere, somehow, globally, regionally, someone can set the standard and agree on the format, that will largely reduce the cost. I don't know whether the upcoming COP26 in Scotland will have touched on that topic, but I believe that it will be a groundbreaking aspect that can bring a lot of benefit to accelerate the whole trend.
So you are saying that it's not only everybody, but everybody has to agree with, and a way. So in order to go there, we have to work together to build a vehicle so that we can go there together faster, cheaper, right? So the information cost can be lowered.
Yeah.
And then that information cost can be lower after Professor Huang, finished the study, and after Peter adopted the
model.
the model, and realized it, which is compliant with the UN initiative, and then also through the initiative that the consumer that Hugo are working with, or the business that in Europe and the whole world can adopt. Then at the end of the day, today's topic, green finance, Paul can easily do his job, and he can join us in the future, do less, and just take over my job and retire, and enjoy with your children, with your second and third generation, living in the world with a better climate, right? So this is our wish, and but I have 2 minutes left. So may I ask any question from the floor? Yes, please.
Thank you, speakers. It's a fantastic conclusion. And I would like to touch on, I really agree on Dr. Peter Cheng when he talks about transparency. I just have a question for Mr. Paul. As a financier, transparency means, for example, in supply chain finance, transparency of all your suppliers in supply chain. And however, in business sense, a lot of businesses are actually middlemen, as Dr. Chen has just said. And a lot of these middlemen are small, medium enterprises that you're serving right now. So I just want to ask, in terms of sustainable financing that you're doing, do you see that transparency is an obstacle for you to extend financing to help those businesses? If so, how do you overcome it? If not, what is your take on transparency and how you balance this factor to how much financing you should grant to the small and medium enterprises who are middlemen, or how should they transit with your financing to a different business model that's more sustainable or providing value? Thank you.
A few points we can talk about, because all along it's easier for the big corp to adopt the practice because they have the people. It's always about SME, that how can they adopt to the changes. I think my advice is that because a lot of banks like us some solutions are so complicated, it's difficult for SME to follow. You can imagine, if I talk about a sustainable link look, we have to sit together, agree on a matrix, and then I have to find a third party, check your performance, KPI on a regular basis. It's extremely costly and lengthened. But without that, we don't want to have a green finance which turned out to be just traditional. It's not happening in the world. So it's not easy for the SME to follow. So what I think SME can do and banks should do is that just like what we have done 12 years ago is that we launch some simple products as simple as green equipment finance that we work with the Pacific Council, BEC. They are the expert, and they're willing to certify certain practice or machine at a very low cost, a few thousand a case that the bank subsidized, and they certify that and help the SME to go for the green journey. That worked extremely well in the past decade, and I believe that more and more practice of that will continue in the futures for the finance. And also what I can see is that because of the advancements of a lot of the information system, ERP, data are now more readily available. So I believe that going forward, there should be more and more supply chain finance that can cater to also the SME. Just like what I mentioned, Walmart, it has more than 30,000 suppliers. Some of them are smaller ones. And with the latest solutions that with Walmart, there is a framework. At the very beginning, as an SME, you may not score very high, but try it first. Given time, learn from the process, you can improve your score gradually. Then you enjoy a low interest rate. At a time, your practice will become more sustainable. I think that the guts and being brave to start the trial and error process will be important. And a lot of big boys are willing to help.
Good, good. So a small step from HSBC makes a big step, for the SMEs in Hong Kong and the area. Thank you very much. So thanks for sharing, panelists, and then Hugo in Sweden. Okay, thank you.